I just wanted someone to talk to, but the way he typed, "I'm here with you," touched the truest part of me. They say the internet is full of strangers. I wasn't looking for love. I just wanted to stop crying into my pillow at 2 a.m. It started on a Tuesday night. The kind of night where the world felt like it had forgotten me completely. My parents were arguing again, muffled rage seeping through the walls like poison gas. I didn't want to exist in that space. I didn't want to exist, period. So I went online. Some random forum, a quiet corner of the internet meant for people who couldn't sleep. Need someone to talk to, the thread read. I clicked. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Just another lonely post, Evan, I told myself. Don't expect anything real. I typed, "Does anyone else feel like they're pretending to be a person every day?" A reply came almost instantly. Yeah. Every single damn day. His username was Neon Moth. Something about it felt strange and beautiful, like a creature that shouldn't exist but does anyway. He didn't ask questions. He didn't demand to know why I felt broken. He just sat with me in the silence. And then he typed the words, "I'm here with you." I don't know why that shattered me. Maybe because no one else had ever said it. Not like that. Not without pity. Not without pretending to fix me. That night, I didn't feel so alone. His real name was Julian. He was 19. Lived in Portland. By studying film, but hated the idea of making movies for straight people pretending to be deep. He had curly hair and a nervous laugh. I didn't see his face for weeks, but I started building it in my head like a sketch from memory. I was 17. Closeted. Anxious. Trapped in a small town in Texas where boys like me learned to smile through shame and laugh through panic. Where the church was louder than your heartbeat and everyone knew what you should be before you did. But Julian never asked me to define myself. We talked about everything: Bowie, anime, our favorite cereal brands. We stayed up talking about the world and why it hurts so much to live in it. I sent him voice notes. He sent me video clips of the rain falling on his window. He called me E, and when he said it, it sounded like safety. One night, I asked, "Is it weird that Thysis feels real?" He replied, "I think it's the most real thing I've ever had." I didn't tell anyone about Julian. I couldn't. At school, I kept my head down. Pretended I didn't see the sneers when I flinched at locker slams or when someone, jokingly, asked if I had a boyfriend. But I waited for him every night. 9 p.m., sharp. One night, he didn't log on. Then the next night. Then 3 more. I spiraled. I left messages. I emailed. I checked every platform we'd used. Nothing. It felt like losing a limb in my sleep. Like waking up and forgetting how to breathe. I skipped school. I made excuses to my mom. I replayed his voice notes until they felt like lies. Then, 6 days later, a message popped up. "I'm sorry. I messed up." I stared at the screen for 5 minutes before typing. "Are you okay?" His reply came slowly. I got scared. My ex showed up. Things got bad. I didn't know how to say I was drowning again. I wanted to yell. I wanted to ask why he left me there in the dark. But instead, I typed. "You could have told me." He replied, "I didn't want to hurt you with my broken pieces." I cried for the first time in weeks. Not because I was sad. Because I finally understood him. We started video calling after that. The first time I saw him, he looked tired, like the world had tried to erase him but gave up halfway. But when he smiled, it was like someone turned the volume back up on life. He called me handsome. I laughed like it was illegal. The night he told me he liked me, he did it with a smirk. "So, I kinda think about kissing you more than I should." I didn't know how to respond. No one had ever wanted me like that. Not in real life. But Julian wasn't a fantasy. He was the boy who typed "I'm here with you" when I wanted to disappear. The boy who laughed at my dumb jokes. Who sent me poetry in the form of voice notes because he said my name deserved more than just letters. And maybe I was falling for him. The more we talked, the more I realized how much we had been holding back from the world, not just because of fear, but because we'd been taught that our love was too loud. Too soft. Too weird. Too much. Julian didn't push me to come out. He didn't need me to. He said, "You get to be real at your own pace. I'm not the door, I'm just the light under it." One night, I asked him to stay on the video call while I fell asleep. I was terrified he'd think it was clingy or weird, but he said, "I was hoping you'd ask." His voice was the last thing I heard before I drifted off. Not the shouting in the other room. Not the demons in my head. Just him. He became the place I escaped to. Until the day I stopped needing to escape. It started after I got caught staring. It was gym class. Boys changed fast, like they were afraid of being seen, or worse, seen seeing. I wasn't looking in a sexual way. Not really. I was just trying to understand what it meant to be like them. Why I didn't move the same. Why I didn't want the same. But someone noticed. And that was enough. The next morning, someone had scrawled the word "faggot" in red marker across my locker. A couple kids laughed. A few looked away. My stomach twisted into itself, my throat closing up like I had swallowed concrete. I didn't cry. Not until Julian called that night and asked how my day was. Then I sobbed so hard I couldn't breathe. He didn't try to fix it. He didn't say, "It gets better." He just sat with me. Again. Still. Always. A few weeks later, he sent me a bus ticket. "Come to Portland," the note read. "Even just for the weekend. I want to show you what it feels like to walk down the street without flinching." I stared at the ticket for hours. Was I really ready? Could I do something that big? My hands shook when I told my mom I wanted to visit a friend. She gave me that look, the half-curious, half-afraid expression that parents get when their child starts to change in ways they can't stop. But I was 18 now. Barely, but enough. I packed my bag. And I ran towards something for the first time in my life. The bus ride was long and strange. I listened to the playlist Julian made me, all soft indie tracks and sad love songs. There were butterflies in my stomach the size of birds. Every time I looked out the window, the world looked different. Not because it was, but because I was. Julian met me at the station. He looked exactly like I pictured him and nothing like I expected. He was wearing an oversized denim jacket with a rainbow pin and carried a tote bag that read, "Queer Magic is Real." His smile broke open the air between us. I almost tripped walking up to him. "You're here," he whispered, pulling me into a hug so tight I thought I might disappear inside it. "I'm here," I said, burying my face in his shoulder. "With you." We spent the whole day walking around downtown Portland. He showed me Powell's Books, a massive bookstore where we got lost for hours in the LGBTQ+ section. We ate vegan tacos and drank lavender soda. He introduced me to his friends, a couple of whom were trans, some bi, a few just gloriously weird in the best way. For the first time, I didn't feel like the gay kid. I just felt like me. That night, we lay on his tiny apartment bed, shoulders barely touching. "I don't want to go back," I whispered. He turned to me, face soft. "Then don't." We didn't kiss that night. Not because we didn't want to, but because we were still learning the shape of each other's silence. Love, real love, doesn't always rush. But the real world doesn't stay away forever. 3 days later, my mom called. "I found your messages. Silence. Is he your boyfriend? I felt a lump rise in my throat, sharp and dry. He's my person, I said quietly. That's what matters. She didn't yell. Didn't cry. But the disappointment was like a closed door I couldn't open. You need to come home, she said flatly. We'll talk about this in person. Julian was sitting across from me when I hung up. He didn't ask what she said. He just opened his arms. And I fell into them. The goodbye at the station felt like a punishment. Like the universe was reminding me that joy comes with a price tag. I'll be back, I promised. You better be, he said, voice cracking. Or I'll come to Texas and drag you back myself. I laughed through my tears. And then the bus pulled away. I watched him disappear behind me, a figure of hope shrinking in a mirror. Back home, things got worse before they got better. My mom cried one night in the kitchen, whispering that she just wanted a normal life for me. My dad didn't speak to me for days. At school, the rumors had mutated into a full-blown campaign, pictures of me and Julian from social media printed out and taped to bathroom stalls. But I didn't care as much as I used to. Because I had proof that life could be different. That someone, somewhere, had seen all of me and didn't look away. One evening, I opened my window and let the night air in. I called Julian. Tell me something stupid, I said. He laughed. I once cried during a dog food commercial. The golden retriever reminded me of you. I snorted. That's incredibly dumb. But also kind of romantic, he said. I smiled into the darkness. I miss you. I'm here with you, he said. Even when I'm not. I thought things would settle eventually. That my parents would stop seeing my identity as a mistake, that the kids at school would get bored of tormenting me. But time only made their silence louder. They weren't angry anymore, just cold. Like I was a stranger in my own house. My dad said things like, "This phase will pass." My mom prayed more often. For me. For my soul. For my return to the right path. Every dinner was like walking through a minefield. Every morning, I practiced breathing before opening my bedroom door. Every night, I talked to Julian until my voice was too raw to speak. I wanted to leave. But I was stuck. Julian, on the other hand, was thriving. His short film got accepted into a queer film festival in Seattle. His friends were throwing him a celebration party. He invited me, of course. Said I could stay the whole week. No pressure. Just an escape hatch. I told my mom I wanted to visit a college out west. She looked at me for a long moment. Then she said, "Fine. But don't make any stupid decisions." I didn't answer. Because I'd already made the smartest decision of my life, letting myself love someone who saw me as more than a problem to fix. The party was beautiful. String lights and mismatched rugs, laughter spilling from every corner of the apartment. People danced like they didn't owe the world an apology for existing. Julian held my hand the whole night, introducing me proudly, without hesitation. "This is Evan," he said, over and over, like a benediction. "My boyfriend." And I didn't flinch. Not once. Later, when the party died down and the room was lit only by candles and half-empty glasses of wine, we curled up on the futon, legs tangled, hearts exposed. He ran a hand through my hair and whispered, "Stay." My breath hitched. "I want to," I said. "Then do it." It sounded so simple. So obvious. But staying meant leaving everything else behind, my family, my town, the version of me that had tiptoed through life for so long. I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake, listening to Julian's steady breathing, counting every single thing I'd lose. And everything I'd gain. In the morning, I called my mom. "I'm not coming back," I said. There was silence. A long, stretched-out silence that felt like standing on the edge of a cliff. Then she said, "If you do this, Evan, don't expect to walk back through our door." "I know," I whispered. I hung up. And I cried. Not because I regretted it. Because grief and freedom can look a lot alike when you're not used to either. Julian didn't say anything when I told him. He just walked over, wrapped his arms around me, and held me like I was something breakable that he wanted to keep whole. "I got you," he said. And I believed him. The first few weeks were strange. I got a part-time job at a bookstore near the university. I started taking online classes. I met real people who didn't just tolerate me but celebrated me. I learned how to make pasta from scratch. I cried at sunsets. I started to write again. Julian and I had our first fight 2 months in. It was over something dumb, dishes, or maybe rent, but it turned into something big, because we were both scared. Scared that the love we'd built would crack under pressure. Scared that the fairy tale would fall apart now that we lived in it. He stormed out. I locked myself in the bathroom and sat on the floor, shaking. But an hour later, he came back. Knelt outside the door. Said, "I don't care if we break 100 times, Evan. As long as we rebuild together." I opened the door. And we rebuilt. One night, about 6 months in, we were walking home from a late movie. It was cold. The city was quiet. Our fingers were laced, our steps slow. "Do you ever think about the version of us that never met?" I asked. He looked at me, soft and serious. "No. I think that version of me died the moment I read your post." I smiled. But there was something heavy in my chest. Because as much as I loved the life we were building, I missed something. Or maybe someone. Not my old self, but the boy who never thought he'd be allowed to be this happy. The next day, I got a message from my little sister. It was short. Just 3 words. "I miss you." I called her instantly. She was crying. "They don't talk about you anymore," she whispered. "Like you're dead or something." "I'm not," I said, tears blurring my vision. "I'm still your brother. I'll always be your brother." She sniffled. "Can I come visit?" My heart cracked open. "Yes," I said. "Please." When she arrived 2 weeks later, Julian picked her up from the airport with flowers. She gave him a skeptical look but softened quickly. By the end of the weekend, they were baking cookies and singing Taylor Swift. She told me our mom had started therapy. That my dad had said, maybe we were too harsh. I didn't believe it, not fully, but I let myself hope. Because sometimes, that's all you get. A year passed. Then another. Julian and I moved into a bigger apartment. We adopted a rescue dog named Pluto. He proposed to me in the middle of a thunderstorm, soaking wet, shaking, and laughing. I said yes before he could finish the question. The night before the wedding, I wrote my vows. And for the first time, I allowed myself to remember everything: the silence of my childhood, the locker slams, the prayers whispered in fear, the cold rooms and colder words. But I also remembered the thread. The tiny, shining thread that ran through it all. I'm here with you. That sentence saved me. And now, it would be the start of forever. The morning of our wedding, the sky was gray. Julian looked at me from across the room as we got ready in silence, his eyes calm, steady. He wasn't nervous. Neither was I. We had lived through things that broke people. We'd chosen each other through storms and silence. This was just a declaration of what we already knew. I dreamed about this, I said quietly as he fixed his collar. Yeah, he asked. Back when I thought I'd never make it past 18. I imagined what it would feel like to wake up and know I was loved. Completely. Without apology. Julian crossed the room and took my hands. We both survived more than we ever should have had to. But I think we were always running toward this. Even before we met. He smiled. Especially before we met. We got married in a garden filled with wildflowers and queer joy. Friends from Portland, my sister, Julian's film classmates, our bookstore coworkers, even a few people from back in Texas who had quietly come out over the years, they all came. They all stood and clapped and cried when we kissed under a canopy of light and rain. And then, just as the ceremony ended, I saw her. My mother. Standing off to the side. Alone. She didn't wave. Didn't call out. But she was there. I froze. Julian noticed immediately. Do you want me to? No, I said, gripping his hand. I'll go. I walked toward her slowly. Her hair had more gray now. Her eyes, the same eyes that used to look through me with confusion and fear, were soft and unsure. She didn't say anything. I didn't either. We stood in silence until she finally whispered, I wasn't ready to lose you. But I wasn't ready to accept you either. And I know that hurt you. It did, I said honestly. A lot. She nodded, tears brimming. I don't expect forgiveness. But I want to start learning how to love you the way you deserve to be loved. My throat tightened. Then start now, I whispered. And I hugged her. Not because it fixed everything. But because healing doesn't come all at once. It comes in choices. In moments. In presence. Julian and I danced all night. We danced like our younger selves were watching. Like the boy in the dark bedroom, posting into the void, was seeing this future and realizing it was possible. You know, I said, pulling him close under the fairy lights, I still have that screenshot. What screenshot? Your first message. The one that said I'm here with you. He grinned. Still works, doesn't it? Still does. Years passed. We traveled. Julian's films got picked up by streaming platforms. I published a book of essays called Letters to the Boy I Was. It reached people. Really reached them. I got emails from kids in places like Iowa, Alabama, Mississippi. They wrote things like, your story made me feel less alone. I thought I was broken until I saw how you found your way. Thank you for surviving. And I realized something. Julian saved me once with 6 simple words. Now I was passing that same light forward, a chain of truth, empathy, survival, and love. One spring evening, while walking Pluto through the neighborhood, I saw a teenager sitting alone on a bench near the park. He looked how I used to look. Hollow-eyed. Shrinking into himself. Headphones in, knees pulled tight. I hesitated. Then I sat on the other end of the bench. He glanced at me, guarded. Rough day? I asked gently. He shrugged. They all are. I nodded. Yeah. I remember those. He didn't respond, but he didn't leave either. So I said, there's this sentence someone once said to me when I was your age. Saved my life. He looked over, skeptical. Yeah. What was it? I smiled. I'm here with you. He didn't say anything. But his eyes shimmered for a second. His shoulders relaxed. I stood. Take care of yourself, okay? He nodded. And as I walked away, I felt something shift in the air. Like a thread being passed from one hand to another. When people ask me now, how did you know he was the one? I don't talk about the wedding. Or the kisses. Or the vacations. Not even the good days. I talk about the night I cried into my keyboard, and someone I didn't know chose to sit in the dark with me. I talk about how love sometimes begins not with fireworks, but with presence. With silence. With the words. I'm here with you. Julian and I grew older. Wrinkled. Softer in some ways, sharper in others. We fought about groceries, playlists, thermostat settings. We made up with midnight ice cream and lazy Sunday mornings. We built a life out of the things we were told we weren't allowed to want. And one day, I sat beside his hospital bed, his hand in mine, as he smiled through tired breaths. You remember the first thing I said to you? He asked. I nodded, unable to speak. I meant it, Evan. I meant it every single day. And then he closed his eyes. And I held his hand. And I stayed. Grief didn't break me. It tried. But love had rooted too deep. Julian had left me a letter. I found it in the drawer the next morning. It was messy and full of his terrible handwriting, but the last line was printed perfectly. Don't forget to pass it on. So I do. Every chance I get. In classrooms. In online forums. On sidewalks. In bookstores. At parades. To scared teens and tired adults. To anyone who's ever felt like they were too much or not enough or just plain invisible. I tell them. I'm here with you. And sometimes, that's enough. Sometimes, that's everything. The end. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.